We are honored to play host this evening to a historic personality from the United States of America, the Honorable Kamala Harris, a distinguished lawyer after a lifetime of public service, having been elected District Attorney of San Francisco and Attorney General of California, and then United States Senator. She was elected Vice President of the United States of America, the first female and the first person of African and Asian descent to occupy that high office. Madam, we congratulate you on these outstanding achievements and bid you and your husband, the second gentleman, Douglas Emhoff, and your delegation, with its large contingent of our kith and kin, the African Americans, a warm welcome to Ghana. You're amongst a people famed for their hospitality. Akwaba is our word of welcome. I've had the privilege of meeting you on two occasions, once in Washington and the other in Munich. So you can understand my elation in receiving you as my guest at the seat of the presidency of Ghana, Jubilee House. We value very much the friendship between the United States of America and the Republic of Ghana. And my hope is that our two nations and peoples will continue to deepen the bonds of friendship and cooperation that exist between us, especially as our two countries are both fully committed to democratic values and to governance systems founded on the separation of powers and respect for human rights, the rule of law, and the principles of democratic accountability. We recognize that our governance systems are best anchored in market economies which reward individual enterprise, creativity, and innovation, and which deliver prosperity to the masses of their peoples, including their women. Madam Vice President, the establishment of formal relations between our countries dates back to 1957, when Ghana, under the dynamic leadership of our first president, Kwame Nkrumah, became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to free herself of the colonial yoke, in our case, that of the British. On that momentous occasion of 6 March 1957, Ghana's Independence Day, the only other U.S. Vice President to visit us, Richard Nixon, led the U.S. delegation at President Dwight Eisenhower's behest to attend the ceremony. Members of the U.S. delegation included Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the great civil rights leader, his famous wife, Coretta Scott King, Ralph Bunche, the Undersecretary of the United Nations and the first African American to win the Nobel Peace Prize, and other prominent African American leaders, such as Philip Randolph, Mordecai Johnson, Horace Mann, Senator Charles Diggs, and Congressman Adam Clayton Powell. The link between Ghana's liberation, indeed Africa's liberation, and the American civil rights movement was forged that day, a link that rendered ridiculous the decision of the U.S. government to prevent the celebrated W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the pioneers of the Pan-African movement, from attending the event. Happily, in the course of Ghana's Fourth Republic, a more edifying precedent has been set, which has seen 3 successive U.S. presidents visit us. President Clinton in 1998, President George Bush in 2008, and President Barack Obama in 2009. It was President Donald Trump whose failure to visit us interrupted this welcome development, which we hope President Biden will soon resume. 66 years after our independence, with Ghana being one of America's most important partners in sub-Saharan Africa, the fruits of Ghana-USA relations are evident. One of the most notable examples of those relations was given in the early years of our independence, when Kaiser Aluminum signed with President Nkrumah's government, with the support of the World Bank, to build in 1965 the $196 million United States Akosombo hydroelectric power project, which has since been the main provider of Ghana's energy needs. It remains the single biggest private American investment in our country. The time has come for it to be replicated. There have, however, been more recent examples of positive cooperation with the United States. In 2016, towards the holding of the 2016 elections in Ghana, the elections which first brought me to office, the United States contributed some $7 million United States dollars towards the holding of those elections. We were among the first beneficiaries of the Millennium Challenge Compact initiated by the government of President Bush, which led to a grant of $547 million United States dollars negotiated by the Kufuor government with the Bush government when I was Ghana's foreign minister. It was satisfactorily performed, which enabled us to enter into MCC Compact 2, negotiated by the successor Mills-Obama governments to improve Ghana's power generation. We're looking forward to negotiating MCC Compact 3. The Pokuasi bulk supply project, with a total capacity of 580 million volt-amps, whose construction commenced in February 2019 and was completed in August 2021, the largest bulk power supply point in Ghana, which together with the George Walker Bush Highway are significant examples of the imprints of recent cooperation with the United States of America. We continue to be appreciative of the annual provision of scholarships to Ghanaian students to study in America through initiatives such as the Young African Leaders Initiative, and the hospitality that is accorded to the hundreds of thousands of Ghanaians living in and contributing to the life of the United States. Vice President, we're encouraged by the fact that more American companies than ever are looking to invest in Ghana, and we will continue to create and maintain the conducive investment atmosphere that would not only guarantee the safety of their investments, but good returns on those investments as well. As you know, we want to move the focus of our economy from just being producers and exporters of raw materials. We want to build a value-added industrialized economy with a modernized agriculture, which will enable us to reach our destination of a Ghana beyond aid. I'm happy that our relations with the United States are now being focused on an increase in trade and investment cooperation. Madam Vice President, we share many similar positions on the great questions of the global agenda, especially our mutual attachment to the implementation of the Paris Climate Accord, to the strengthening of the multilateral system of international cooperation, to the respect for the sovereignty of all nations, great or small, to the maintenance of international law and order, and to the need to employ peaceful means to resolve disputes. We are, however, both resolute in our condemnation and opposition to terrorism and violent extremism, and Ghana, within her modest means, is determined to cooperate with the United States to fight these menaces. To that end, we welcome the strong cooperation in security matters with the United States. I'm happy to announce that Ghana has accepted the invitation of the United States to join the Atlantic Basin Cooperation as a founding member. The government of Ghana believes that such cooperation will provide the platform to enhance cooperation to develop shared approaches to Atlantic Ocean issues and build on shared capacities and experiences for the benefit of the Atlantic Ocean region. As a coastal country bordering the Atlantic Ocean, Ghana recognizes that no country alone can solve the cross-boundary challenges in the Atlantic Ocean, ranging from maritime security to environmental degradation. Ghana therefore welcomes and commits to exploring the numerous opportunities offered by this laudable initiative on Atlantic cooperation. I wish to assure you, Madam, that the Republic of Ghana will continue to collaborate with the United States of America at the bilateral and multilateral levels in finding solutions to challenges such as widespread poverty, irregular migration, insecurity and human rights violations, including discrimination against women, terrorism and violent extremism, human and drug trafficking, piracy, as well as climate change and its attendant impact on the environment and livelihoods. I want to state once again for the record that Ghana's history has been against great power domination of the affairs of the world. And that is the reason why Ghana led the fight for the liberation of the African continent from colonialism and imperialism, and became one of the 5 initiators of the historic non-aligned movement. It is this same principle that led us to vote in the United Nations General Assembly in favor of the motion condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And it is a position we will continue to hold. Great powers of whatever ilk, including friendly ones, trampling on small nations is not something we welcome. And within our modest means, we will register our disapproval of it. The effects of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, coupled with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, have undeniably put countries, communities, and households across Africa, and indeed across the world, in precarious situations, and are threatening to derail the development process and progress in African countries in particular. Ghana, for her part, has not been spared the effects of these pernicious developments. And that is why we've gone to the International Monetary Fund to seek its assistance to repair in the short term our public finances and restore our balance of payments, whilst we continue to work on the medium to long-term structural changes that are at the heart of our goal of constructing a resilient, robust Ghanaian economy and building a Ghana beyond aid. We will count on the support of the United States in reaching a good agreement with the fund, which will set the stage for the strong recovery of Ghana's economy. Madam Vice President, I said to you in Washington, D.C., and I believe it is appropriate on the occasion of your visit to reiterate a matter of great importance to Ghana, and that is the process of UN reform, especially reform of the UN Security Council. We are committed to Africa's common position on UN reform based on the Azulwini Consensus, and are anxious that the matter of UN reform finds its way back quickly to the center of the global agenda. I'm pleased that good progress is being made on the reform of the UN Security Council, which has been given a great boost by the decision of US President Joe Biden to embrace the reform process, the first time a US president has explicitly done so. I'm hopeful that the leaders of the other 3 P5 members of the Security Council will soon follow his lead, just as French President Emmanuel Macron has done. The time has come for the global community to undertake this much-needed reform, which will bring greater effectiveness to the work of the United Nations and the Security Council in the maintenance of international peace and security. Madam, I hope you enjoy your visit to Cape Coast tomorrow and to Cape Coast Castle, one of the locations through which slaves were transported to the Americas and the Caribbean, in the infamous, barbaric, and dehumanizing transatlantic slave trade. With Ghana recognizing her unique position as the location for 75% of the slave dungeons built on the west coast of Africa, we believe we have a responsibility to extend a hand of welcome back home to Africans in the diaspora, the reason for the commemoration of the Year of Return in 2019. We use the events of that year to solidify our relations with our kith and kin in the Americas and the Caribbean. We believe the time has come to engage Africans in the diaspora and all persons of African descent more positively in areas such as trade and investment cooperation and skills and knowledge development and transfer. We want to work together to change the African narrative, which has been characterized largely by a concentration on disease, hunger, poverty, and illegal mass migration. Together, we must help make Africa the place for investment, progress, and prosperity, and the stage for the development of the prosperity of the African peoples and all descendants of Africa. Once again, Vice President Kamala Harris, thank you, your husband, the Second Gentleman, and your delegation for coming to Ghana. We're indeed honored by the presence in our midst of the first female Vice President of the United States of America, a person of African descent, and we're happy that Ghana was the first port of call on her first official visit to Africa. We should never forget the sentiments of that legendary Jamaican reggae musician, Peter Tosh, who said, and I quote, "Don't care where you come from. As long as you are a black man, you are an African." Madam, you're welcome home. Since you were born on a Tuesday, I'm sure you will not mind if we add the Ghanaian name Abna, the Akan name for all Tuesday-born females, to your name. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you to be upstanding and raise your glasses to toast the health and welfare of the Vice President of the United States of America, the Honorable Kamala Abna Harris. Her husband, the Second Gentleman, Douglas Emhoff, and of the friendly American people, including their leader, President Joe Biden, and First Lady Jill Biden, and the flourishing of the friendship between the Republic of Ghana and the United States of America. May God continue to bless. God continue to bless the peoples of Ghana and the United States.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Mr. President, thank you for extending my name. Abena, is that it? There we are. And greetings to all the Abena who are here tonight. Mr. President, I thank you for hosting this state banquet. As I begin this week-long visit across the continent of Africa, it is an honor indeed, Mr. President, to start here in Ghana. I thank the members of Congress who have traveled with me, Senator Coons, Congresswoman Phyllis McCormick, and I thank you to all the Ghanaian officials who have received us so warmly and who have made this trip possible. We are joined today by incredible leaders from Ghana and throughout the continent. And here with us tonight are also individuals from the United States who represent the glorious beauty of the African diaspora. We have with us on this trip Oscar and Emmy winners, CEOs and media publishers, civil rights leaders and advocates, artists and academics, dignitaries and diplomats. And Mr. President, you are personally responsible for welcoming and encouraging the connection of the diaspora to this continent. Because of you, Mr. President, hundreds of thousands of Black Americans and members of the diaspora around the world came here 4 years ago to participate in the Year of Return. Because you are a student of history, and in the time during which I have come to know you, you take great joy in reminding us all of where we come from, but always with a glorious vision of where we also know we can be. And because of you, members of the diaspora and those around the world have traveled to Ghana to remember the history of slavery, those who have come here to honor their lineage and to understand their ancestry. And now, through Beyond the Return, many more visit each year. Your vision, Mr. President, made this possible. So on behalf of all of those who have made the return, all those from America who join you tonight, and all those who will return in the future, thank you, Mr. President. President Joe Biden and I are committed to celebrate and strengthen the long-standing ties that connect our people and our nations. These ties are a source of pride and strength for both our countries. Mr. President, this is a topic that you and I have often spoken about. Over these past 2 years, it has been my honor to work with you on these and many other critical issues. When we first met at the White House in September of 2021, we started our conversation about the intertwined history between our two nations. A conversation about how we are as nations interconnected and interdependent. Last December, you and I spoke at the Diaspora Forum at the United States Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. Waiting to take the stage, I was backstage as you spoke, and I watched, Mr. President, as you elegantly reminded the audience that, I quote, "Destiny of all Black people, no matter where in the world they are, is bound up with Africa." I then announced at that forum that President Joe Biden would create a new Presidential Advisory Council on African diaspora engagement in the United States. Last month, both you and I attended the Munich Security Conference, representing our respective nations. There, you called for a change in the paradigm of the continent's relationship with the world, a point with which I agree and reinforced when I spoke during my own appearance in Munich. And now it is my honor to be here to continue that conversation, to build on our work together, and to discuss our shared destiny. Mr. President, Ghana's leadership and advocacy on the world stage is not only vital, it is inspiring, historically so. As you have mentioned, on March 6, 1957, when Ghana gained independence, it inspired millions of Americans, as it did for millions around the world, including Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who came here to witness the dawn of a new era. Dr. King, as we all know, and he wrote, was deeply moved by what he saw here. He wrote and spoke of it for years after. He spoke and wrote about what Ghana was teaching the world. And he predicted that Ghana's independence, and I will quote, will have worldwide implications and repercussions, not only for Africa, but for America. Ghana, he said, tells us that the forces of the universe are on the side of justice. This remains true today. Ghana is a leading voice for democracy and a leading voice in the march for freedom, justice, and liberty. While we face real challenges, I look around tonight and I am truly more optimistic than ever. And I know that by working together, the United States and Ghana, alongside the diaspora and the people of this beautiful continent, will share our future for the better. I thank you, and I raise this approaching glass to you, Mr. President, and thank you for the warm welcome and visit. Thank you.